This week's episode is up to 30% slower. Thank you, Intel. Meltdown, Spectre, Wolfram, and all the other mutants welcome the Electromanic to the Hall of Superhumans. We have a dream, we have an agenda, and we clearly just want to watch the world burn in a blazing ball of anarcho-nerd culture. It's Lose A Turn. Welcome to it. Greetings and salutations. I'm your host, Chuck Mullins.
I'm Lord Headcold.
And I'm Matt Herring.
Jack is coming to us via NyQuil, so it's given him the power to live for just a little bit.
You know, I'm actually sick as well, and I've come up with the most fascinating cocktail of allergy medicine, cough medicine, throat lozenges, cough lozenges. Like, it's been a pretty amazing week for me. Super doped up right now.
Sarah and I wake up each morning and race to the toilet paper roll to see who can bleed the most out of their nose. For some reason, we've had nosebleeds this whole fucking week, man.
So did my wife, actually. It's really interesting. She told me about that this morning. Same thing. She's been sick as well. And
it's the AI. That's what they're doing. The nanobots are giving us minor nosebleeds. It's starting. It has begun.
Oh, so that's why the flu vaccine didn't work this year. Is that
It was just nanobots, just chilling.
That's a terrifying future brought to you by Lose A Turn.
So, the Electromanic. This dude is my favorite. Now, unfortunately, statistically speaking, we are going to have more inductees into our Hall of Superhumans that fall under the villain category than humans. So please, for the love of God, if any listeners find a good superhuman, please send that in. In researching our hero of this week, I found one dude, a homeless man, who walked into a supermarket and got up on the speaker. Attention customers, we've found a bomb in the building. Please line up at the front door and evacuate the premises. Then he grabs all the beer he can and just uses the chaos to run away. And got away with like $60 a beer. Another dude in a mall this week has his cohort set off an arrangement of fireworks in the middle of the mall while he was in a jewelry store trying on a Rolex. The moment the fireworks go off, everyone thinks there's a mass shooting. All the employees duck into the back. They just leave him out there, say, fuck you, and just run straight to the back. He walks off with an $11,000 watch. This is some Ocean's 11 bullshit.
Holy shit.
But I hate to say favorite, because this dude is vile. The Electromanic. He is vacationing with his wife and his parents-in-law. His in-laws, we'll say that. That rolls off the tongue.
His parents.
Yeah. And takes a quick break from the vacation, says, I gotta go, just one moment. And he books it back to his in-laws' home, removes all the security cameras, the smart cameras that like send the feed to his wife, dumps them in the toilet, rigs up a car battery and a series of cables to the lock and the door handle. So if someone pulls the door handle and inserts a key in, they complete the circuit and get very dead. And then, like, for some strange reason, again, on the back sliding glass door, he draws a face, a happy face, and writes the word hi. He, on the bed, lays out a ton of pictures of, like, he and his high school sweetheart, his wife. Just puts pictures everywhere. Then calls her and says, oh, by the way, I'm on my way back, but when you do come home, be sure not to let any of the kids unlock the door, and don't use the garage door because it's broken for some reason. I'm not at the house. I just heard about this. So she realizes that the cameras aren't giving her feeds to the house anymore, talks to her father and is like, for some reason, my husband just said I should come home and use the front door, and I don't know what's going on, but the cameras are offline. They call the cops. Cops start looking around back, see the happy face go to the front door and just say, let's kick this fucker in. And they kick in the door. A giant spark like occurred because I guess briefly there was some sort of connection. So, the other smart move of his was being sure to change his profile picture on his Facebook to him with like a gun in each hand and changing his relationship status to widowed. Bit premature.
Whoa. What the fuck?
Did I forget to mention that she was pregnant with his child?
On a scale of 1 to this will never work.
Verifiably would work. They had several Navy electricians come in and identify the rig that he had set up. And based off the tension of the door, it's one of those doors that require you to kind of pull on the handle while you jiggle the key. Yeah. So long as she would have been the one to unlock it, there was a 80% chance of severe bodily damage to death. So he has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder.
Well, yeah, no, definitely. But, that many amps is very dangerous. The problem I see, though, is he kind of went from, okay, this has like a 50-50 chance of working if she actually goes through the front door, or even if she just like looks at it after she gets inside through the garage door and she's like, well, what does this do? And she touches it and not realizing, because a lot of people aren't going to understand circuits. Unfortunately, I think most people should be able to see that and be like, oh, that's a circuit. I don't want to complete that. I'm digressing. He just layered it on and on and on and on and on. Like, at what point did it go from I'm trying to kill my wife to like this woman's actually the crazy one and I don't want to kill her, but I want to make sure that I have a legitimate reason to go to jail so that she can never like get around me again. Like, does that narrative fit in the story anywhere, or
no, because when you do that, you do it like there's another hero I've wanted to induct for a long time who robbed a bank at gunpoint, or it was actually at comb point. He just had a comb in his jacket and took the money, then returned it and stood in the lobby just waiting to be arrested because he hated his wife so much that he wanted to get away from her. Funny thing is that the judge sentenced him to home arrest. Wow. Completely did not jail him at all, forced him to be at home with his wife. They're actually doing really well, by the way. Right? Well. But no, this fucking cartoony, I mean, this Looney Tune motherfucker came out of Roger Rabbit. I mean, to go so far as to draw a happy face with lipstick, to try to... The rig he made is so fucking like Max Fleischer.
I mean, he wanted to be caught. He wanted to demonstrate criminal intent over and over again. He made that very clear.
Well, I mean, the thing is, he took a tumble.
I bet there's footage of him taking the security cameras down. Like, I don't think he hid from the security cameras when he did that. I'm just guessing here, but he didn't cover his tracks anywhere else.
Yeah.
I want to bring up a slightly funny scenario with this whole situation. Let's think about...
So Drano and tinfoil in the whiskey cabinet is a really good way to make this happen.
Right.
Damn it.
There were options.
But what if... Let's just say...
That's not what Jack was saying, okay.
No. Let's just say, like, this almost perfectly worked, and... the wife did go for the holding the door and unlocking it with the key, but ended up not getting electrocuted because she had like a Hello Kitty rubber key thing, like holding the key. The key housing.
It would go straight through it. It would go straight through that. Yeah, if it was voltage, no, it wouldn't. But you're talking about a car battery. That amperage would go straight through.
Yeah, the amperage, I guess. Yeah, it'd probably still find.
It was 1 amp.
Yeah,
car batteries are 14.
Well, the rig So they, well, like I said, they had like power and light people come over and investigate the rig, and they said it would be 120 volts at 1 amp.
Okay, so yeah, no, that probably that
I mean,
killed her.
still though.
Well, they said 80 to 100% chance of suffering death or great bodily harm.
That's amperage is really what kills you.
Well,
It's not really the voltage; it's the amperage, really.
Right.
A car battery will generally function. I don't remember. It's not the full 14 amps that it's normally functioning at, but at that initial load, like I've always had a capacitor with my sound system in my car, and you can monitor the amperage it's at. And when you're cranking the car on, it definitely jumps up to 14.8 amps.
Yeah,
Well, that's probably what the assistance of the the cranking amps. It's probably the assistance of the alternator or starter.
I have it straight from the battery to the capacitor. So
okay.
So I get a direct read off of the battery. I mean, anyway, like car batteries are super dangerous. They're a great way to kill people. Be careful. Don't ever play a prank by connecting wires to a car battery, kids. That's a bad idea. I guess if it wasn't carrying a full 14 amps, he was using small wires that would heat up and possibly melt before carrying that entire load.
I mean, there were several junctions in the wired rig that he had set up. So,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, there's a chance for a loss of load there. Jack, were you done with what you were going to say? I can't even remember.
I was just gonna say that that reminds me, like, you know, a year and a half ago, a good friend of ours, CJ, almost hooked up a car battery to his nipples, and I'm really glad I didn't let that happen. I told him it was a bad idea.
Yeah, a friend of mine was
encourage
working
this.
on the car, and he was using a socket wrench and accidentally connected both nodes, and he said that his sinuses were very clear after that. That was about it.
Wait, like with
He
both
survived.
hands, or
No, he just had one hand, and he was rotating the wrench,
Oh,
and it just
wow, yeah.
connected one node to the other briefly. And
yeah,
So,
lucky.
we've been discussing the whole acquisition of Fox via Disney, and Disney's been doing a pretty fantastic job lately when it comes to all of its. I mean, it's got everything. You know, you got your Star Wars, which I'm gonna what.
I mean, it's been doing a wonderful job at its mental takeover of pop culture.
Oh, sure enough. Here's where I think they may have fallen short. I don't know what these dudes are called, but the think tank that decided to rename Fox has revealed the new name for Fox now that the acquisition is complete. So Fox Sports and Fox TV shows and all that shit are now going to be reimagined as New Fox.
You've got
Like, I guess someone else registered 21st Century Fox as a title. I mean, that was 2 seconds of thought.
right.
20th Century Fox? Let's keep Fox in the name. Let's call it 21st Century Fox. Maybe.
Yeah.
Call it Zoff. Write Fox backwards. I don't fucking know. Put Mickey Mouse ears on the O and whatever. But New Fox.
Ooks.
Fooks, yes. Umlauts. Who gives a fooks? They've literally decided that it's just going to be called New Fox. And that is the channel name.
Somebody should get fired.
Is this a cult classic thing?
I mean, it's okay. The only move as stupid as this, Nintendo's done this twice. Whenever they created the new Super Mario Brothers, which I'll even allow that to pass. That's okay. But the 3DS systems, the naming conventions for that are totally fucked.
Oh, yeah. That shit was
'cause-
annoying. The new
yeah.
3DS.
How many 3DSs are there now? There's like 5. There's
Like
the
four or
2DS,
five, yeah.
the 2DS, which is technically not a 3DS, the 3DS, the 3DS XL, the new Nintendo 3DS, and the new Nintendo 3DS XL or something like that. I don't fucking know. But don't brand something as new because it gets old. That's fucking stupid.
You know what'd been
can't.
better? It's just been like Nintendo Beaver Orange Rabbit.
How did we ignore the fact that?
I would have loved to
How
be
did
in
we
that
ignore
meeting.
Apple here? There was this huge thing. So I worked at Best Buy at the time where Apple's like, nope, you can't call it the iPad 3. You can't call it the iPad 4. You have to call it the new iPad. You have to call it that. It had, and that was like part of. Maybe I'm not supposed to be talking about this. I don't remember exactly, but there was a big thing where it's like customers are going to come in and ask for the new iPad, so you need to call it that, and that's how we're branding it. Now, I don't remember that lasting very long, either through sheer rebellion or maybe they realized how stupid that was indeed to make that the official title, and like searches in the system. The inventory systems, like it was bonkers for a bit. No one was happy with it, but
I can imagine.
companies are like kind of obsessed with this new nomenclature as if it carries some sort of power.
Do you think new is replacing X, like Roman numeral 10/X? Because X used to be the cool thing to name shit, like OS X, and oh boy,
The iPhone X, I mean, which just came
Yeah, I
out,
mean-
so I don't think it's replacing anything, but
They could have been all like edgy and new, and at least call it like, new Nintendo 3DS, but spell new as like NU.
in you. Yeah. Or
Nintendo
NOOOO, new. Fuck, man.
I think it's still no, Chuck.
No. Well, that should have been the fucking name. That should have been brought up at the fucking meeting. I mean, can you imagine sitting there in this room as some egghead is like, I have an idea. Let's call it New Fox. And everyone's like, this is a great idea. Let's do exactly that. Like, what? You know what? I think it's all the Fox execs using that Disney money to fuel all their habits. They were all lit as fuck, and they're like, "New sounds good, yeah."
this does sound like something that came from the Fox execs, not from Disney. I'm kind of
Right.
surprised to hear this came from Disney.
Yeah, it's a fucking goddamn shame, is what that is. Excuse my language. This is what it is.
Maybe Disney just doesn't give a shit about Fox and its title as a company at all. They just wanted the rights to some of their properties. So they're just
that's
like,
for
fuck what we
sure.
call it.
That's absolutely true.
That is true. I'm willing to go out there and say this is a fact.
Oh God! Now I'm thinking. For some reason, this just brought up the memory of a Disney Channel original movie. I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but Jack loved it as a kid. It starred the older brother from Boy Meets World. Jack, you know what I'm talking about? HE double hockey sticks.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
I think that's what we're going to see on Fox Sports, like from here on out. Fox Sports is just going to be like reruns of Disney high school sport movies.
Johnny Tsunami, motocross. I
Oh,
mean, come
shit.
on, dude.
Tsunami.
Was it Brink?
Brink.
The new Fox games.
I'm not seeing a downside to this. I'll actually start watching
Actually-
new Fox Sports.
Yeah,
I
right.
would too. Yeah, I would totally sign up for Fox Sports. Like, yeah, I'm a sports boy now.
I totally love the original Disney movies, or original like made for TV movies that they had, dude. They were
They had
amazing.
some classics, yeah, man. So I do have some good news for you guys, and Animaniacs is coming back.
I was just watching Animaniacs yesterday
Where were you watching it?
on Hulu in my living room.
Exactly. Hulu has got the rights for Animaniacs, and they're producing the new seasons. It's got a 2-season order right now. Hulu is producing Animaniacs, and it's back.
Fuck yes, dude. That's
Can
amazing.
we trust it though? Is this going to be kind of like the new Powerpuff Girls and I mean every
is that
other
a
new
thing?
thing that was just super awkward and missed the point of the show?
I don't
Or
think
is this
so.
gonna like be true to form? And I can't see Animaniacs existing in a politically correct world. You can make arguments that Animaniacs actually was politically correct and empowering
it was
towards
not.
women.
It was not at all.
I mean, I think there are fair arguments, but But with y'all's reaction, most people wouldn't see it that way.
2 words, fingerprints.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Do you know the scene I'm talking about?
I know
do
exactly
not.
what it is.
There is an episode in which Dot ends up in the arms of the artist formerly known as Prince, and they're doing some sort of like detective
Like
sleuth
investigative work,
and she's
yeah.
like, fingerprints? Not me. I mean, like, there are so many such expletive.
No, that's
yeah.
just that's inappropriate, not necessarily politically incorrect.
Well, okay, Amblin Entertainment.
However, like
which,
you look at a character like Hello Nurse, who is arguably like objectified by the men on the show. However, she's extremely intelligent, and the entire point of that character is for you to admire like how much of a badass she is apart from her looks. Right?
And that's something that would
Dot
totally fit
is
today.
more often than not the real hero of the show who bails out her brothers. I mean, there's a lot going on in that show that's I would argue like there's some pretty good morals if you're looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would totally fit in today's society without getting too much hate. The good news is that it's Warner Brothers Animation and Amblin TV. Amblin TV is a Spielberg founded and owned company, so you've got Spielberg and Warner Brothers doing it again.
Nice.
I feel like that there's such a direction that they take with that show that's like you can't. It's really hard to veer off and make it wrong. I feel like there's just a very certain way they write that show. I don't think they can. I think it'd be hard to actually fuck it up. To be honest.
You know what I don't know, and I'm searching right now, is like my favorite voice actor of all time is Robert Paulson. And
Yeah.
yes, his name is Robert Paulson. He's am I totally wrong about this? Is it not Rob Paulson? The voice
That's what I was looking at. That's what I was looking at yesterday.
Yeah, it's Robert Paulson. He's the voice of Yakko Warner. He was the voice in the very first Ninja Turtles animated show. He was the voice of Michelangelo and Raphael for a couple of the episodes.
It's an interesting duo to be able to pull off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he was just, I think, Raphael or just Michelangelo. They got another actor to come in. Was
he also Pinky? From Pinky in the Brain? Did he end up doing that?
Maybe.
I couldn't remember if he did that as well.
You know, I think Warner Brothers may have been one of the best places for cartoon animation back in the 90s, and definitely
dude.
One of the biggest unsung heroes of that era.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look up his IMDb, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, how much Rob Paulson does.
Yeah, I mean, he's been in everything, and
so he was primarily affiliated with Warner Brothers, correct?
Mainly. Not always, but that's where he did most of his
but
work, I believe. Or like his biggest work that, people recognize right away.
Back when Warner Brothers was one of the big studios. Yeah.
Wait, he was in Biker Mike
from Mars. He was in Aladdin. He was in the Addams Family, Adventure Time, Two Angry Beavers, Tactical Killer Tomatoes, Batman Animated Series, Ben 10, Boondocks.
He's a busy fucking
dude.
man. Damn.
He's a busy man. Chippendale Rescue Rangers. That was my personal favorites. Darkwing Duck.
Oh, yeah.
Dexter's Laboratory. He gets work. He is like the voice of most of your cartoons you've ever watched. You've probably.
Yeah, dude.
Jesus, this list goes on, and I'm going to break the scroll wheel on my mouse looking at this dude. I assume that he will reprise his role as Yakko and
I imagine
everything
so.
else. I hope so. It's got to be. If not, we need to like call him up right now and be like, "Yo, got a job offer for you." So yes, Hulu has Animaniacs coming back. Another cool thing. This is a note, and I usually start announcing betas at the end of the show for some reason, but I'm going to go ahead and throw this in here right now. Dragon Ball Fighter Z has a beta that's opening up January 13th at midnight. That's PST. So if you have a PS4 or Xbox One, you can download the beta and start playing it. It is a very, very gorgeous looking game. Like, I know that that's exactly what I will be doing at midnight on the 13th.
Yeah, dude,
Unfortunately, it had some server issues during its previous beta. So the overall sense was that it is absolutely gorgeous. It's just like watching the show. But
wait a second. You said server issues. Is this going to be cross-platform?
I don't know that it's cross-platform, but it is online. But it could be.
Well, because if they're having server issues, that means they're not relying on Microsoft or Sony for their servers.
Well, not server issues, just that it was there was some chaos regarding the online portion of the game. I don't know. I don't actually have the details on that. So no,
Maybe like its
it was just
connection to the server or something weird there. I don't know.
Please get me so
launching
excited
matches
about
were
these
next to
things, Chuck.
impossible. I know. Well, you're right. Maybe it is.
We'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
We'll
I'll
have
let you know.
to touch on that next
That'd be
week.
cool.
I know. Yeah.
It'd be awesome
So-
if it's cross-platform.
Really great.
There's a TV show in the works via Netflix that has announced it promises it will not be watered down. It promises that it will be as accurate as possible, as brutal as possible, as true to the source material as possible. Matt, Jack, were you aware that we're about to have The Witcher TV series?
I heard
Yes.
something. I heard a rumor about this. I wasn't sure if it was confirmed or not, but
Oh, it's absolutely confirmed.
I heard, and I'm excited. Do you know what other production companies are involved? Like, I'm happy to hear Netflix money is going to be behind it.
yeah.
I'm infinitely more excited about this than the Lord of the Rings remake they're doing on Hulu.
Absolutely. I am too. Hands down.
It's
Hands
such a
fucking
dark story. You can't do The Witcher. By the way,
Yeah, I see it right back there.
brand new came in this week, the set, so I'm going to start reading those soon. But you can't do The Witcher without some really dark themes, and you just can't like PG that. So
No, you cannot. I mean, it was a brutal, dark world. Everything about it. I mean, like, granted, it's entertaining. It's more comedic than your Game of Thrones, but
the stories behind it they are, like you said, brutal. But every story, it's like, hey, yeah, no, I'm the ruler of this land, and also, I had my wife abort my kid, and now it's haunting me, and you've got to go exorcise it, and also it's going to like appear before you in a seance. It's brutal as hell. Everything, every monster, like, it's a disgusting world that is beautiful for the horror that it evokes.
yeah. No, I mean,
That's my
I have
opinion.
to take it. I'm still playing Witcher 3 because I have to take it in small bites because I don't want to get my eyes to glaze over and me not really appreciate what it is. I'm and it's funny that you brought up that specific scene because I think that was like the second to last mission I completed, and it is
Well, it's also
bone-chilling.
early enough that I'm not worried about spoiling that for someone. Like,
That's
yes,
early
you
in the
could
game.
skip that, but that's really kind of one of the first major things you're supposed to encounter once you get to the real open world area.
It's
funny.
nuts, so
It's funny because I have a buddy in LA who actually does some camera work for a lot of the Netflix original series.
Really?
Maybe I can get maybe I can get some insight on the show when it starts production if he's a part of the project or not.
oh yeah, we got an insider.
I'd like to know instead of waiting.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm definitely excited as hell about that.
Here's the other thing I'm really excited about when it comes to Netflix producing a show like this, as opposed to someone like HBO. Generally speaking, HBO has less to lose compared to like a network like old Fox for producing a TV series and the ratings and you know what their audience. HBO, if you've got a subscriber already, all you want to do is get new subscribers. So you can kind of step outside your comfort zone a little bit to get a new subscriber that may only watch that one show, but you're not trying to get ratings for a specific time slot. So it's a different model. And Netflix very much has that as well. But HBO kind of needs that show to go on for season after season after season.
Yeah.
Whereas Netflix may or may not. One of the most enlightening experiences I ever had was when I first watched House of Cards. I realized in the first like 4 episodes, you've got one episode that's an hour and 20 minutes long, one episode that's 40 minutes long, another an hour and 10, and another that's like 55 minutes long. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
You've got this amazing experience where people don't have to tailor the story to commercial breaks or end of the show. The narrative can fit in the appropriate time slot, and it doesn't have to be stretched or shrunk to fit something.
To fill a predetermined length of time. That it opens up so many possibilities.
HBO does have to follow that model as well. So there are 2 areas in which Netflix does have the opportunity to make a better show. Now, it's an uncharted territory. There's not as much of a method to it, so they also have more opportunity to mess it up. But I really think A Tale as Dark as this. Yeah, they Game of Thrones is 8 to 9 or whatever, and then they have another show that's lined up. They have TV scheduling.
Oh, I remember as a kid they didn't. You would turn it on and it just shows like, okay, and at 8:15 this show is going to start, and it was like all kind of random.
That was before TV series when they had movies and they could just schedule the movies or whatever. But now they have these TV series, and a lot of them, and people want to show up to watch that one show.
Yeah, you're right.
So.
Okay, fair enough. But fuck, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. That was a very...
And so they push the cliffhanger to the end of the episode, and there's this very formulaic structure to it, and I think it is one of the reasons I've kind of lost a bit of interest in Game of Thrones. Like, I keep telling myself I want to go back and catch up. I'm like 2 seasons behind. I never
I'm a season behind. I just don't care
like
to. I mean,
16 hours
I'm like 6 seasons behind?
Chuck has not watched it.
Like, I enjoy it when I watch it, but
absolutely, it's just you're setting yourself up for the same structured roller coaster all day long, and like it is very formulaic, unfortunately.
Man, guys,
we're getting spoiled.
We are.
Technology-wise, it is definitely spoiling us, and to such an extent that last week we discussed the World Health Organization, whatever it's fucking called, their diagnosis of gaming disorder. So we have another new fun affliction known as Zzz-mail, with 3 Z's. It's catchy.
Zzz-mail.
The first ever case of Zzz-mail was recently reported this year, in which a sleeping woman woke up. And now the article's mind-boggling to me because it begins with, she woke up, walked to her computer, turned it on, entered her password, opened her internet connection client, and entered her username and password there. Who the fuck?
What are we in, like, 1996?
Yeah. Like, I guess she opened her AOL, inserted her 1,400 free minutes disc of AOL. But it's mentioned like 3 times in this article that it's mind-boggling that she had to sign on to her internet.
Wait, so she was definitely on dial-up, because you can't do PPPoE on a router. On a NAT router, the router has to have the PPPoE credentials. It has to be what negotiates the authentication to the server.
DSL still works for PPPoE, and
right, but you have to put the credentials in the router.
No, not necessarily.
Otherwise, you can't have multiple IPs on the network.
I was working for a DSL company, and they had a PPPoE client that you would have to log into. I think it would just push the credentials to the router, and the router would use that, or not the router.
In my experience, every time I've done PPPoE with the client that's provided by the DSL company, you could only have that one computer on the network at a time. And if you wanted the NAT router to assign IP addresses, you had to put the credentials on there, because it's only the credentials are only going to give you one IP. right? And you need the NAT router in place to get the multiple IP addresses.
But if you had
So
a
the
hardware
router
modem,
has to get the... What's that?
if you had an external hardware modem that was performing the authentication, you would have to log in on the software client, and that would push the credentials to the hardware modem.
But without
also
that
had
NAT router, you're still only getting one computer on the network, right? So, anyhow, we're really digressing. We're arguing about
now that
how
you're all asleep,
awful her technology is. Like
never bring up
she's back in
anything
AOL
related
days.
with Matt and Chuck. Yeah. Fucking noted. Jesus Christ. Unless I just want to watch the world burn.
yeah, right. So this woman logged on to her whatever. We're not going to discuss that anymore. That's redacted. Then logged into her email account and started sending emails to people.
Yeah, I think the real point here is she's been doing the same thing every day for 25 to 30 years at least now, because that's how old her technology is, that, yeah, it all comes automatically. I'll sit down at a computer and be like, oh, I just typed in 35 characters. Did I actually get my password right? I don't remember actually typing it. There was a motion there. And yeah, I log in just fine. I can see it happening after, you know...
Or I feel like this lady has to be some kind of like insane workaholic. Like she literally eats and breathes and sleeps fucking work. Obviously, because then she wakes up in the middle of sleep and sleeps while she's
the impressive part to me though is like, yeah, I could do these things in my sleep. I don't have the motor function to do it in my sleep. Like I'll try to pick up my phone when I just wake up and right on my face. I can't grip it.
So let me add a bit more to this narrative for you, gents. She sent out 3 emails. They were apparently all random mixes of upper and lowercase, not very well formatted. It looked like an E.E. Cummings poem. And she had no idea that any of this happened until the following day when her friend says, okay, on my way. She's like, what do you mean, okay, on your way? She's like, well, you invited me over. The email read, come tomorrow and sort this hellhole out. Dinner and drinks 4 p.m. Bring wine and caviar only.
And she had a friend that was good enough that was just like, I'm down.
Just like right on board.
That place is a hellhole, and we're going to take care of it. I got the caviar.
Yeah, she had no idea she did this until her friend said that, and then she looked in her outbox and noticed that she'd emailed 3 different friends so many random things, and she was asleep the entire time. The emails were timed from whenever she was completely asleep.
Pretty awesome.
It's funny that you bring this up because I just remembered, I just realized I actually did something kind of similar to this about 2 or 3 months ago.
Oh?
But what I did was I woke up in the middle of the night, logged into my VPN and sent an email to my work requesting the next day off, and then went back to sleep. Woke up the next day, went to work and saw I was scheduled for a vacation day, and I was like, "What?" And I looked at my email and I saw I sent it. It was like 4:30 in the morning. I'm like, "What the fuck did I do? Fuck it, I'll go back home and have a day off." But
Wow.
I forgot all about that. Yeah.
So
Dude.
Jack, alcoholism is a different issue than what we're talking about. And I'm kidding, guys.
No, that was last week's show.
I had to make a jab.
You're an asshole.
There's another interesting case of sleepwalking that's mentioned in this article regarding a nurse in Wales who apparently has 0 interest in art and no talent for it, yet when he's asleep produces paintings and works of art. He's known as Picasso. Doesn't give a shit
What's
about art.
up in
Nurse by day,
Spanish?
artist by night. Not Picasso.
What's up
like,
in Spanish?
no, like
Picasso.
Picasso. Like Picasso.
I get that. I get it. Picasso is also what's up in Spanish. Like, how does he spell this? I'm gonna be so
Is it
furious if he spells it.
Kipasso.
Okay.
Damn.
All right.
Sleeping people are strange. Coming up, LG the South Korean company, is rolling out 3 new robots that it will be showcasing at this year's CES, Consumer Electronics something, I think. Can't remember all of a sudden.
Show.
Doesn't matter. It's Lose a Turn.
You forget the easy one.
Show.
Consumer
Stiff.
Electronics Show.
Consumer Electronics Stiff. Rolling out 3 new models of robots that's going to begin replacing humans in the workplace. One model is specifically for hotels. It'll do check-in, check-out, and deliver your room service. Another model is going for airports, which will provide, flight information and also deliver food and drink to people waiting in the lounges. And a supermarket robot that will tell you the price of stuff and guide you to where things are on the shelves in whatever supermarket.
So, speaking on this, I actually had a buddy who experienced this recently and saw a video of it, and it was really crazy to see. But what it made me think of was, what if, like, when this becomes a common thing, across the board, across, America or the world or wherever, where every hotel has these robots, what if somebody just had, like, the hair up their ass to recreate, was it Quentin Tarantino's 4 Rooms? But how would they recreate it with robots? Like, would that still work? Or how would the scenario turn out? I just thought it was a funny idea for some reason.
In the interest of trying to make robots more, accessible to humans, they're going to have to program them with some crazy quirks. So sure, I'm sure someone will develop a robot with the exact same crazy
mannerisms.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it'd be a funny thing to see, 20 years from now or something.
The trouble is going to be getting it out of that uncanny valley, though.
Well, I mean, as Matt would probably no doubt say, 4 Rooms would be quite different because it would be 55 minutes of the programmer developing the AI for the robot. And then he shoots himself in the face, and then you'll just have a 3-minute vignette of 4 Rooms with a robot AI that also shoots itself in the face.
From an artistic point of view, I would watch that. That's actually really terrifying and horrifying in nature, what you just talked about. Also, I would look on in absolute awe, and I mean that in the true sense of the word.
Yeah. Also, very interesting, Ford is giving its factory workers robotic exo-suits. They've teamed up with a company to develop a very, very lightweight exo-suit with hydraulics that allows the employees to be able to keep their arms raised for hours at a time and work under the machine. So they've already released 3 of these, and workers are using them in Detroit right now. But their plan is to pretty much provide one for all of its employees.
I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea. I mean, it's a great idea, for efficiency and be able to hold your arms up for a long, extended period of time. But at the same time, you're working so, the strenuous work that you do is so much less hard. Is it going to become an issue where, they want you to work more because you put in literally, little to no effort, doing half your job?
I mean, I guess. Let's stop building friggin', cranes for the shop and just have 4 employees lift the car and carry it across the floor and shit. And I don't know. It's so crazy. The technology it's always been, whatever. Never mind. I don't even know what I'm going to say. It's just nuts. We have exoskeletons in the workplace. We have
pretty cool.
AI running rampant, and we don't even know how to fucking computer. This week we announced Meltdown and Spectre. 2, well, technically
Chuck,
3.
I think you're being a little bit unfair. These are hairy topics. I mean. In fact, they're hairy enough that I think cumulatively, we probably spent 8 or more hours just trying to break this down into something simple. And we're still not quite sure what to say about it. We very well may just glaze over this topic with very little info to our listeners. What do you got about it, though?
Well, it's the Meltdown and Spectre exploits. Well, specifically, I'm going to be focusing mostly on Meltdown because there's very little known about Spectre, and that was intentionally kept under wraps. The thing is that we've known, not we collectively, we haven't known, but the tech industry, whatever, Jesus.
The people preaching the AI doctrine to us. We talked about them last week. Apple,
Right.
Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Facebook, and IBM.
Yes. They've all known
Also Linus
about,
Torvald.
And yes, Linus Torvalds. They've known about this since last summer. And it started off as a theory written by a college student suggesting that it would be possible or could be possible to read cached information from a CPU and am I having a fucking stroke right
so
now?
this really is complicated, and we're having a lot of difficulty. The idea is that I guess we'll have to start at the beginning.
Every processor made by Intel since 1995 has this function built in to speed up its ability to process, and that's known as speculative calculation, in which it would, or is it speculative execution? Jesus. And it would pretty much make guesses as to, down the road, I'm going to need to perform this function. So I'm going to go ahead, and while I'm busy running this line in this order of code, I'm also going to do some of this stuff down here. Hopefully I'll use it. If so, yay, I got through it faster. If not, I'll throw it away. And by throwing away the data, it would be stored in the CPU cache. And so the Meltdown exploit allows the ability to read that information that's in the CPU cache. So the short version is that this could be things such as your passwords, your root passwords, your encryption keys. And so it's a read-only exploit. There's no way of executing code through it. Well, that's not the primary concern. It's just the ability to be able to read stuff.
All right. And your heads are probably all melting right now. This took so much for me to even get a small understanding of what's going on. Basically, in a computer, you've got something known as a stack, which programmers can access to store a equals 2, a quick variable, and it's a non-executable portion of scrap memory, so code can't actually be read from it. And that wasn't always the case. We've found errors like this in the past, and so eventually we made the stack non-executable to protect ourselves. Eventually we took. I am trying to catch up and read. Eventually, we added this what's known as address space randomization, and so we take sections of memory and randomly scatter them all around instead of putting them sequentially in order. And that just makes it so that when code is read out of a file, you can't overflow the stack and put too much information in it that can then be executed because it's no longer in the stack. And then we separate kernel, which is operating system memory, and user space memory, which is kind of what you should be using. And one is what Windows is actively doing in the background, and the other is what you're doing. And so we're trying to separate all these for security, and there's just so much going on. But in these exploits, they're using methodology to manipulate the stack and the tables that are used through this address space layout randomization, and access the data that's on the processor cache to manipulate what is read. So if you know what speculations are being made by the chip, you can say, hey, go go do this, and this. And hopefully, if you're the attacker, the processor's going to go look for that encryption key that Chuck was talking about, and then you'll be able to read it and check things out. And maybe you'll have to create a map or something that gives you an idea of where things are randomly laid out in memory, so that you can pair this with other exploits. And so what's really going on is that, yes, there is the ability for kernel space or operating system space memory to be read and some security to be leaked there, but you can also kind of leverage this to bring us back in time a little bit to older security flaws that we felt like we were pretty safe from for a while. And I guess that's as simple as we're going to be able to make
overflow.
it.
Yeah.
So with all of that said, and also trying to wrap your head around about how big of an issue or how big this is, and while I get what you're saying, I think the best part about that whole entire thing is just watching y'all struggle.
Fuck you.
It's so hard. I mean,
But no, I mean, like, it's like, in a real sense, like, watching, as y'all were trying to explain that and actually watching y'all try to wrap your head around and vocalize it, like what it really is it gives a sense of like how fucking big this is.
And absolutely, like I spoke with Chuck about this before the show. I have a script written out, and I just threw that script away because it would be so monotone and boring to for y'all to listen to me try to read that and preach to you about it. I decided to give y'all the entertainment of listening to me flail.
No, that's insane though.
So the thing is that this effect, because speculative execution was implemented by Intel in '95. I think it's around the time they started releasing the Pentium processors, which did increase speed of processing so much. This is damn near every chip they've made, and several ARM processors.
Right. And so ARM, AMD, Intel are all affected by some variant of this. In addition, on an operating system level, these exploits work as well. So we're talking about Spectre and Meltdown, and we're not going to try to separate the two from you, but you've got a slight understanding of how these work, erroneous or not. Like, that's kind of what's going on behind the scenes. And there will be performance degradations in implementing these operating system fixes, but then there's also problems with the hardware architecture. On Intel's side, some of these problems can't be fixed without redesigning the architecture.
Right.
And
the real fix for this is a hardware fix, but there's no way of doing that with the last 20 some odd years of chips that are in existence all over the world. So the dirty fix is one at an operating system level, and it will impede the ability to process things by up to 30% in some cases.
Now that performance will only be impaired on an Intel chip.
Yes, this is a Meltdown specific.
Right, and for most users, it's 5% or less in a performance hit, but it is highly workload dependent, so it could be up to 30%.
I think Postgres, for instance, on average is taking like a 23 to 27% hit during Postgres database processing. Yeah,
and that's actually where I imagined. So much information out there about this. There's so much misinformation about this, but I did imagine database querying is where you'd experience the biggest problem here.
An interesting thing about the misinformation, and the reason that we even found out about this, like we said earlier, is this was known about when it comes to the big tech companies since last July, I think. And they were planning a patch and to announce this on January 9th. Now, we're recording this episode on the 7th, should be released by the 8th. So, the Tuesday, the 9th of January in 2018 was when this was planned to be announced by all the companies along with the patches. But it seems as if someone kind of committed some changes to the Linux kernel ahead of time. And because it's open source, a lot of the developers were like, what's going on? Why this change? What are you doing here? And it led to speculation and fear and people started announcing there's something crazy going on, and this is what we think it is. This is what we think it is. So,
and if I understand the changes correctly, it was removing documentation that would allow people who didn't know about this to read manuals about the processes involved. So it was on the Linux side, and there are documentations about certain functions in the kernel that are removed from the OS currently. So generally that's not what you do on Linux, and that there was just because this is such a ubiquitous exploit that does have the potential for a lot. If like we're looking at worst case scenarios, I think that's what Linus Torvald really wanted to queue up and say, nope, this is going to be announced next Tuesday. We have to make sure that this is available as little as possible until we can really get a well-developed fix in place.
I mean, so when it comes to the actual use case of the attack, it's less likely to, someone's going to get access to your phone and be able to do it, because the exploits require local scripts to run and local access to a system. So your personal computers aren't...
Except you are stepping from user space into kernel space with this. So a sufficiently crafted website could... If they...
Right.
I mean, they would have to kind of commit to your machine, but a sufficiently crafted website could kind of start trying to take a peek at your machine, and maybe they find some exploits. I'm probably mixing some information here, but I do think that there's a commitment of like 30 seconds before you can even get most of this started, and that can be extended depending on how much memory your system has. So I don't think most people actually have to be worried. In fact, we'll read a statement. For each different Intel or AMD processor, you would need unique code. This example should be exceedingly rare in the wild, and AMD goes as far as to call it a near zero risk for systems.
Right.
But, I mean, it is something that is so ubiquitous that, I mean, maybe if you're a high profile target, you should probably be aware of this.
And so the targets are so again, the ability to cross user space into kernel space, and what the real risks are in our present day infrastructure, things like Amazon AWS, any public cloud, those are shared web hosting. Those are going to be the biggest targets of them all, because these are people who would have access to the user space because, I've got an AWS account. Now that I have access at the kernel level, I can see which domains may be owned by, certain tenants, and have access to their, this is the virtual router they're using. And so in those shared hosting environments, you don't know who you're on that same machine with. And these are going to be the targets. I mean, it's very unlikely someone's going to spend the time developing this to run JavaScript on a machine.
One person.
Yeah, it's way too difficult to exploit. At least Spectre is. But
however, there are alternate variants of this, and so run your system updates. That there is one variant of this that's very ubiquitous and very easy that can be taken care of with an operating system update, and you may run into some performance problems because of that, but it is worth
yeah, absolutely.
This is malicious attacks like this only get better, and so we're probably all not going to have any issues over the next couple of months, but if you're unupdated 6 months from now, you're probably in a world of hurt.
Yeah, I mean, this is to the point where I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, I may have read somewhere that they're even like releasing patches for previously EOL systems, just because this goes back so far. So I have a question for you guys. Let's try to be entertaining. Let's stop struggling.
No. I'm just kidding.
I want to know.
Thank you so much for putting up with that. By the way, we're not experts. We tried our best, but I doubt we could have communicated that accurately if we wanted to melt your brains even more, and we were trying to stay away from that as much as possible. So, there are some errors in there. Please don't write a paper. Please don't reference us. Please don't act like we're an authority on the subject. We're just trying to bring a tiny bit of understanding to you.
The tiniest bit possible.
Yes. There are not any experts on the matter.
So I don't have a fun name for this proposed segment we're about to try out, but it's up to you guys to decide. Are these the actions of a serial killer or a famous person? Just before Christmas, a family received a package on their doorstep. When they opened it up, inside was a typewriter. Along with this time writer, what the fuck, Mullins? I've had way too much Irish in my coffee this show. So, this typewriter came with a specific set of instructions demanding that it be used once a week. Jesus, let me find this here. Crapola. Good job, Chuck. This is the best show ever. So, yeah, really, actually, I've just lost all of this.
Womp womp.
So what we have to go on is a typewriter with a note that says, do this or else. Use this typewriter or else.
Yeah, a letter has to be written once a week, and the family must buy a typewriter for someone else and send it to them.
Okay, wait. Once a week they have to buy a typewriter?
No.
Like, you're going to run out soon.
The condition for being able to own this typewriter is you have to buy one every fucking week. Yeah, that does not work out. No, they must buy a typewriter and send it to someone else, and one letter has to be written every week from this typewriter.
To whom?
That part is not
okay.
Contractually specific.
What is the or else? You lose the
Or
typewriter, or
the typewriter must be returned.
Quote, returned, or like, I mean, or they're gonna come take it from you.
That part isn't specifically written down, and I hope to God they don't come for them. It's a real life chain letter.
All right, so are we doing special rules where the first person to guess, the other person defaults to the opposite guess?
Opposite? Sure.
Yeah. All right. I think I'm going with...
I said celebrity already.
Oh, you did? All right,
yeah.
Then... I mean, I can make a strong argument for the celebrity, but I'm going to go ahead and make the serial killer argument.
Now, Jack was clearly right. Now, there's bonus points if anyone can try to guess as to what crazy fucking person sent this typewriter to a family they didn't know, demanding they write a letter
U.S.
once a
Postal
week.
Office worker, definitely. Yeah, got to keep the snail mail going.
I think it's Bill Murray.
It'd be cool if it were, but Tom Hanks.
And
Tom
if it's
Hanks,
U.S.
God
Postal
damn it.
Office,
Tom Hanks. He was high on my list.
Yeah, he spent way too much time with that fucking volleyball. Wilson. Yeah, he just sent this family a typewriter with these specific instructions for Christmas.
I was coming up with this narrative in my head. It's a U.S. Postal Service worker. They're going to go postal one day, so I'm not actually wrong. They do become serial killers, and they're just trying to keep the snail mail going. Like, this is 6 degrees of separation. Eventually, enough people are going to have typewriters. Eventually, little notes are going to show up, and like, no, I'm sorry, I actually did mean buy a new typewriter every single week, or else. I forgot the or else part. I like mine better. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll go with Matt's. Okay, let's try to fix this with Stranger Than Fiction. This week,
digging it.
Stranger Than Fiction starring the cast of Smash Brothers. Ooh. Jack, since you won, you get to go first. In Earthbound, renaming the character Pooh to Lucas will allow you to start with 5 pizzas in your inventory.
I'm gonna say false.
All right, I am still bad at making up false ones. Matt. The original Street Fighter 1 arcade cabinet didn't have conventional buttons, but instead 2 pressure-sensitive rubber pads that you would punch to determine the strength of your hit.
False.
It is so fucking odd, it's true. Had 2 rubber pads you would punch to attack.
But there has never been code to determine the strength of your hit in the game. Or how
In
hard
Street
you
Fighter
press.
1 arcade cabinets had 2 rubber
Was
pads you
really?
would punch.
Okay.
Yep. Now they also made a different version of the cabinet with conventional arcade buttons because they were sick of repairing the punch pads. So both variants exist, but originally and in many places, rubber punch pads. Okay,
Right.
Mr. Jack. All of the robot masters in Mega Man's 2 through 7 all started as drawings submitted by children.
I want to say true.
Right, I'm giving Jack the easy ones again, aren't I?
Nah, I wouldn't say so this time.
Okay, good.
He's done pretty good. I wouldn't have gotten the Lucas one at all, though I've never played Earthbound.
How terrible.
So,
I'd love to.
Matt, you should. Mario has many professions. Before being a hero, a doctor, or a plumber, Mario was a taxi driver.
Carpenter.
Okay, good. You did well. Yes, he was a
That's
carpenter to
fucking
begin
right.
with. Jack, in Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, there's a elite strat to beating the final boss. Save your game mid-fight, then don't play for a week. Come back, and the end will have died from old age.
So knowing how ridiculous a lot of the Metal Gear Solids were, like fighting the boss and having to unplug a controller and plug it into player 2 and shit like that, I'm gonna go ahead and say true.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't know you knew about that other trick there, because the robot will continue to read all of your input, and so to not determine what you're doing, you have to plug it into
the player 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Damn, Jack,
that
you were on
wasn't-
fire.
Or maybe I'm thinking of a different Metal Gear game then.
Well, it wasn't.
Because that wasn't
it
the final boss in the one I'm thinking of. There is one where you go through and you set the year on the console forward, and you come back, and it's a guy that's been sniping at you, and he's a skeleton when you come back.
Huh. Yeah,
And
no,
you-
this
you
was
save
the
in the middle of
end.
it. Yeah.
Like the boss
Okay,
named
okay.
the end, who was an old man. So I don't. Maybe
It
that's
it
a
might have
different
been.
one.
Might have been.
Crazy
I
ass
haven't played
fucking
enough
game.
of Metal Gear to be familiar with names.
Okay. So there's this point, just because I want to tie. This one's worth 2 points, and the answer is false. No, I'm just kidding. In Hey You Pikachu for the N64, Matt, if you say the word PlayStation, Pikachu loses his shit and starts firing off bolts.
I really want that to be true.
How bad do you want it to be true? Are you going to say it's true?
Like, even though you just told me it's false, I'm guessing true.
All right, cool. It's a tie now. Yeah, if you say
That's
PlayStation
awesome.
and Hey You Pikachu, he just starts zapping everything.
What like a shitty jab from Nintendo. It's
Good
so
shit.
funny.
Okay, gents, tiebreaker for this week. The government of Denmark sanctioned a 1-to-1 ratio virtual replica of their entire country in this game. Once created, it didn't take long for virtual vandals to invade virtual Denmark and wreck it to hell. In addition to placing American flags all over Copenhagen, they were able to bypass a restriction on the server. It seems that dynamite was strictly prohibited in virtual Denmark, but the vandals were able to sneak tons of it in using virtual mining carts.
This has got to be like Second Life. No? Rune? Is this a Minecraft mod?
Not a mod, but yes, Minecraft.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
The government sanctioned a 1-to-1 virtual ratio virtual replica of Denmark to use as an educational platform, so kids could kind of see what the land looked like before their house was built and try to rebuild their own houses. Full on scale. Americans fucked it the fuck up.
Of course we did. Of course we did.
That goes to Matt.
I mean, then again, Denmark had it coming. On a scale of like, who's the more racist country? Denmark's got us beat, and that's a fucking accomplishment.
Denmark got their comeuppance. That's what Matt says. Jens, do you have any wins this week?
I have one, I promise. I'm just trying to remember what it is. Oh, yeah. So it's kind of stealing from your wins, I think, last week or the week before or whenever. But I started finally watching Marvel Runaways. Really cool show. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm stoked to actually start watching Inhumans and The Gifted. So
You chose to start with Runaways, huh?
Yeah, I decided to do that.
Get on Gifted, dude. Get the fuck on
I want
Gifted.
to.
You're gonna love it.
I want to.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's
Matt?
really good. Really good.
Hopefully it'll
check-
remain good.
You go ahead and go. I'm still trying to figure out what to go with.
Okay. So, my win is the death of a service I didn't know existed. And that would be Amazon Strike. Were y'all familiar with Amazon Strike?
I think so. I'm trying to remember though.
To try to compete with Funimation and Crunchyroll and all the other anime exclusive streaming services, Amazon apparently had their own anime specific streaming service called Amazon Strike. That
Really?
you had to pay, I think, like $60 or $90 for a year.
And that's
And-
why Amazon Prime had so few animes on it. The Prime
Not
Video.
anymore. Now that they've decided they aren't making any fucking money off it, they've destroyed Amazon Strike, and it's now all on your Amazon Prime Video. They have
Hell yeah.
Cowboy
Yes.
Bebop,
Okay.
Elfen Lied, tons of Pokemon, Full
Shit,
Metal
yeah.
Alchemist Brotherhood, Robotech, Altair. All of it is now included with your Prime subscription. Thank you for
Fuck
murdering
yeah.
Amazon Strike, and that is a fucking win.
Hell yeah, that's
Nice.
badass.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
actually
a
have
very
it.
That's a very un-Amazonian move for them to have like had that spin-off there. Generally, they kind of just make you want it because it's so dirt cheap and it's ubiquitous and available. So it seems like they should have just had that bundled into Prime Video.
They should have. Oh, and they also have Soul
some
Eater, Gurren Lagann.
advertised Amazon Strike.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I mean, I never saw a single advertisement for Strike. I have no idea that
Yeah.
this existed at all. And I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I'm the perfect demographic for them to advertise Amazon Strike too, so I have to assume they didn't try very hard. They didn't even take out a Facebook ad.
they have Rurouni Kenshin. That's a recommendation
What?
for everyone to watch. Get on some Rurouni Kenshin. Holy crap,
I think
this is good shit.
I think that's actually on Hulu too.
Oh, nice. Code Gas. Yeah, no, they actually have a really pretty strong lineup. Oh, Spice and Wolf. That's also great. I recommend that. Appleseed. Holy shit, man. I can't stop.
That's
I'm
awesome.
broken now.
It's nice.
Yeah, I was delayed in starting prep for the show today because I was checking to see what they had, and I got sucked into a Cowboy Bebop hole. I was just watching it like I should be prepping. Nope. So, Matt, were you able to come up with a win?
Yeah. One, this is going to be real quick. Security Now from the Twit podcast network.
Yep.
Steve Gibson does a great job deobfuscating what's going on, though the episodes as they come out did not fit in line with I would have loved
The
to
announcement.
have heard his take on Meltdown and Spectre. However, that wasn't possible because almost all this news broke Tuesday morning, I think, or Wednesday morning while they were in the middle of recording. So I did listen to what he was talking about from beforehand. I did not get to hear his direct take on Spectre and Meltdown. That being said, check it out. If you're into IT, computer science at all, and you should just listen to someone intelligent talking about the way he thinks about computers.
Absolutely.
And it's beneficial. Start at episode maybe 10. I think the first 9 are like inconsequential. They're shorter back then. Run up through episode 90. You can like double the playback speed or whatever, and you'll get a quick history of like how the internet works and how operating systems work, and then you can just go through some of the episodes, some of the titles. There's great nuggets all throughout the series. I guess my other more entertaining pick is let me just get this one out of the way. I kind of delayed it last week. South Park: The Fractured But Whole. I loved it. It was the same experience I had with The Stick of Truth, and I know some people have complaints about it. For me, like, yes, the battle systems in each of these games can get old after a while. The battle system in this game is much better, but the game is like you're getting to interact with an episode of South Park and take it at your own pace, and I thoroughly enjoy that.
That's awesome, man.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I heard that it was a little watered down in certain areas compared to like
Compared
some of
to the Stick of Truth. Yeah, the Stick of Truth was nasty, but
nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you agree with that point that it is a little bit watered down?
I think it's got a little bit more nudity, though I can't remember any scenes with nudity, though the poop's not, it doesn't like actively try to gross you out. Yes, there's going to be poop. Yes, there's going to be blood. But it's not like, hey, you have to, climb through all this poop now, and we're going to try
Yes,
to make
there
you
will
gag
be
while you're
poop.
playing. And
Yeah.
I think it was a more tame game. I think they knew what they were doing better. I think the battle system felt more right. Really did enjoy the battle system, and they didn't force you into fights. In the original game, there were certain areas around town that you would walk, and if you wanted to go that direction, you were just going to have to fight because they would chase you down too fast unless you like really just timed that awkward throw a fart in their face to get around them, which like that, that breaks your methodology, your momentum, whatever. And for the most part, you could run to the bottom and run around almost every enemy in this game, and so you didn't have to take the fights you didn't want. That was a huge boon as well.
Cool.
I felt like it was well paced. I felt like it was very entertaining. Yeah, go check it out if you like South Park.
I need
Another
to
interesting
still-
fact about that is that apparently the script for that game was like 5 times the length of a Hollywood movie script. And they didn't know what was actually going to be in or cut out of the game till, it was about to be launched. And because of that, they didn't do any of their voice line recording until about 2 weeks before launch. And
Wow.
Matt Stone got incredibly
Jesus.
sick, had to go in for surgery, get his gallbladder removed, and didn't react well to it. And he was laid up in bed, still in the hospital, and he begged his doctors to let him go. He's like, just be damned, I've got to go. I got to make this game sick as fuck. I'm leaving. So
Wow.
he left the hospital sick as shit and rushed in and did all of those lines with Trey Parker like a week or 2 before launch.
Without spoilers,
Whoa.
there are so many opportunities in that game where it's a very simple line of dialogue, and then you examine what happens and all the possibilities you could have taken to get there, and you realize they probably made 128 different recordings here just for this joke to work.
Yeah.
And you're only
Yeah.
going to hear 4, 5 of them. Like, it's
Right.
pretty crazy.
I also know,
Good.
having not played it before, there's a way to beat it in all about like 2 minutes.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, load it up, and during the intro, when the coon is narrating what happens, if you keep pressing the skip button, he gets irritated with you. He's like, no, you don't want to skip. You want to listen to this. This is the good part. And if you keep doing that, he's like, fine, fuck you, asshole. And it skips ahead to the credits. And the game's over. So try skipping the intro when you boot it back up.
That's hilarious.
There's a great little bit that I love when they have Easter eggs in games that you really have to, screw around with for a long time before you get the reaction that you wanted. And the ones that are like pretty clear, like, yeah, it's something that'll probably happen, but you're gonna have to work for it. And they do have a little Rubik's Cube under a dish, and this isn't a spoiler, it's just a joke, but it just says do not touch, and you punch it with your character and everyone starts screaming at you, don't touch it, you're gonna blow up the universe. And if you punch it like a good another 50 times, it finally falls out of the glass and like the Rubik's Cube just shatters on the ground and you get a giant game over.
Nice.
I enjoy how the attention to detail they put into that game. There is a little bit of something for everything. There is one super gross out power up that you can get. I mean, you don't have to use it that often. It's just I made Shelby sit down and watch it, and she squirmed when she saw it. So,
okay.
I mean, if you like South Park, you're in for a good time, but don't show it to your parents.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, I want to say thanks for sitting with me today and painfully trying to deobfuscate that which is Spectre and Meltdown. If you guys have any questions or advice or suggestions or whatever, feel free to reach out to us in the comments section on our YouTube or at our Reddit subpage or whatever. That's been Lose a Turn for this week. Stay tuned for Natcast.